My mother demanded I attend her golden son's engagement, swearing I would no longer be her son if I didn't. The silence in my office was almost absolute. The only sounds were the hum of the computer and my voice, alternating between English and Spanish, as I closed a futures meeting with a client in Singapore. I was on the 48th floor of the tallest tower in San Pedro Garza Garcia, in Monterrey. From my chair, I could see the city spread out like a sea of lights, a kingdom I had helped build, or at least one in which I had claimed my throne, a throne worth 1 billion pesos. My life was orderly, predictable, and solitary, just the way I liked it. At 28, I was Dario, the CEO and co-founder of a fintech company that was revolutionizing the stock market in Latin America. But to my family, I was still. Well. To them, I simply wasn't. It had been exactly 10 years since I last heard my mother's voice. 10 years of absolute silence until that Tuesday. My personal phone, a device that rarely rang, vibrated on the polished glass desk. The name on the screen made my stomach clench instantly. Bernarda. I stared at the screen for several seconds. Why now, after a decade? Was someone dying? Oh, even worse, did they need something? I swiped to accept the call, not out of affection, but out of morbid curiosity. Hello, I said, my voice sounding colder than I intended. There was a breath on the other end, and then that voice, the voice that had haunted my nightmares and that, in my weakest moments, I had longed for. It didn't sound regretful or loving. It sounded practical. Demanding. This is Bernarda, she said, as if I could have forgotten who she was. Your brother Marcelo is getting engaged. I said nothing. I waited. The silence stretched on, heavy with the weight of 10 years of abandonment. The party is in 2 weeks, she continued, her tone hardening at my lack of response. Here at the house, in Mexico City. The whole family is coming. You have to be here. I have work. It was the only thing I could articulate. My schedule was packed for the next 6 months. I don't care about your work, she snapped. I could picture her on the other end, in the kitchen of that house that had cast me out, with her brow furrowed and that look of a martyr she had also mastered. He's your brother. He's your blood. Are you coming? I don't think that's a good idea, I replied, trying to stay calm. Look, Dario. Her voice dropped a tone, becoming sibilant, dangerous. It was the tone she used just before an explosion. I'm not asking you, I'm ordering you. Marcelo needs his family united. If you don't show up to that party, you can forget you have a mother. Do you hear me? If you don't come, don't you ever call me Mom again in your damn life. And she hung up. The click ended the call, but for me, it was the sound of a trap snapping shut. I stared at the phone, my reflection distorted on the dark screen. The successful man, the millionaire CEO, and suddenly I felt like that 8-year-old boy again, invisible and scared. 10 years without a call, without an, "Are you okay?" without a, "Happy birthday." And now this, an ultimatum. She wasn't calling for me, she was calling for him, for Marcelo, the golden son, the boy who could never fail and who, therefore, had never had to do anything. A part of me wanted to throw the phone against the wall. Another, darker, more calculating part began to think. I had spent a decade building an empire to prove to myself that I wasn't the failure they said I was. I had accumulated more money than they could dream of in 10 lifetimes, and they knew nothing. They still thought of me as the weirdo, the one who went to Monterrey to play with computers. Secretary, I said to my office's interface. Cancel my schedule for the weekend of the 15th and book me a flight to Mexico City. I wasn't going because of Bernarda's threat. I wasn't going for Marcelo. I was going for me. I was going back to that house, to that family hell, not as the prodigal son, but as a ghost. A ghost who was going to see, for the last time, if anything had changed, though deep down, I already knew the answer. It was going to be the final act in my family's theater, and for the first time, I was going to be in control of the script. A private jet would have been faster, but also louder, metaphorically speaking. I opted for first class on a commercial flight. I didn't need to prove anything. Not yet. As the plane took off from Monterey, leaving the Cerro de la Silla behind, my mind did what it always did when I felt pressured. It fled to the past. I saw myself. 12 years old, skinny, with glasses that were too big and a haircut from my mother. I was in the backyard of the house in the Del Valle neighborhood, holding a diploma. It wasn't just any diploma. It was first place nationally in the Math Olympiad. I had beaten thousands of kids. I felt visible. For the first time, I felt I had done something that not even Marcelo could overshadow. I ran inside, looking for Bernarda, for Homero. I won. I won the nationals. I shouted, waving the paper. The house was in a state of controlled chaos. Balloons, streamers. My heart skipped a beat. They had remembered. It was a surprise party for me. Then Bernarda came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, her face tight with anxiety. Where have you been? Your brother is about to arrive. But Mom, my diploma, I started. Yes, yes. How nice, Dario. Now put it in your room. Your brother is devastated, she said. And at that moment, the front door opened. Marcelo walked in, 14 years old. He was wearing his soccer uniform, but it was stained with mud and tears. He'd been benched during the final match of the inter-school championship. He hadn't even played a minute, and they had lost. What happened next was a blur of injustice that was seared into my memory. Bernarda ran to hug Marcelo as if he had returned from war. Oh, my little boy, my champion. Don't cry, my love. Those kids don't deserve you. Homero, my father, a man whose only function in life seemed to be amplifying Bernarda's feelings, came out with a cake. It wasn't just any cake. It was the tres leches cake I had asked for on my birthday the week before, which they hadn't had time to buy. Surprise, champ! Homero shouted. So you can see that for us, you always win. The whole family, aunts and uncles and cousins who had been summoned for Marcelo's consolation party, began to applaud. I stood in the corner with my diploma in my hand. The shiny paper that represented the greatest achievement of my young life now felt like a piece of toilet paper. No one looked at me. No one asked about my competition. Marcelo's party, the celebration of his failure, was more important than my success. That night, when everyone was asleep, I went down to the kitchen. The cake was almost untouched. Marcelo, in his grief, had barely touched it. I took a fork and ate directly from the platter, the cloyingly sweet meringue mixing with the salty taste of the silent tears rolling down my face. It was that night I understood the fundamental rule of the house. It wasn't about what you did, but who you were. And in that house, Marcelo was the sun, and I was a black hole. My success didn't give them light, on the contrary, it threatened to outshine the golden sun. So my success had to be punished, ignored, minimized. The plane leveled off at 30,000 feet. I ordered a whiskey, neat. The flight attendant smiled at me. She probably thought I was a young executive celebrating a deal. She had no idea. I was drinking to numb the 12-year-old boy who still lived inside me, the one holding a useless diploma at a party that wasn't for him. And that boy was about to go home. The whiskey burned my throat and brought with it another memory, the one that truly broke everything. The mortal wound. I was 18. I had gone through high school as a ghost at home but a star at school. While Marcelo was busy collecting girlfriends and failing subjects that Homero justified with, "The boy is just very sociable," I dedicated myself to studying. Not for them, for me. To get away. My goal was clear: Tec de Monterrey, the best private university in Mexico, the MIT of Latin America. I knew they couldn't afford it, so my only option was a full scholarship. I studied myself to death. I slept 4 hours a day. I sacrificed friendships, parties, everything. The day the letter arrived was the happiest day of my life. A thick envelope from ITM. Academic scholarship, 100% of tuition, room, and board. I had one. Not only did I get in, but they were paying me to go. I went downstairs, this time not running like the 12-year-old boy, but walking with the confidence of a man who had an escape plan. I placed the envelope on the dining table during dinner. "I'm going to Monterey," I announced. Marcelo looked up from his phone. "What for?" "To visit our cousins." "I got a full scholarship to Tech," I said, my voice trembling with pride. Homero choked on his food. Bernarda looked at me, and her face showed no pride. It showed panic. "Tech. In Monterey?" she said, her voice sharp. "But that's so far away." "It's the best university in the country, Mom." "But what about your brother?" she whispered, as if it were a terrible secret. And that was the phrase that changed everything. Marcelo had just barely been accepted into some second-rate university in the south of the city. One of those where you pay and they give you a degree. "What do I have to do with it?" Marcelo asked, confused. Bernarda shot me a deadly glare. "Dario, don't be like that. Don't you think about him? How is Marcelo going to feel if you go to such a fancy school? The comparisons will start. People will talk." I was frozen. Comparisons? "Mom, I earned this. He's going to the school he chose. But he's staying here," Bernarda shouted. And then the tears started. They were her nuclear weapon. "You're going to abandon us? After everything we've done for you? To go roll around with the rich kids in Monterey and humiliate us?" Homero jumped in to support her, as always. "Your mother is right. Don't be selfish. UNAM is very good, it's close by. You can commute every day. The family should stay together." UNAM, an excellent university, yes, but they weren't saying it for that reason. They were saying it because it was public, it was close, and most importantly, it wasn't better than Marcelo's in the eyes of their friends. "I'm not giving up my scholarship," I said, my voice trembling, but this time with rage. "It's my future." Bernarda stood up, her face transformed by fury. "Oh, yes. Your future. Well, if you walk out that door, you walk out alone. Forget you have a family. We won't give you a single peso, not 1 cent. Do you hear me? If you go, you're dead to us." "Bernarda, please," Homero tried to mediate, seeing she had gone too far. "Shut up, Homero. I'm sick of this ungrateful child. Let's see if your future feeds you." That night, I packed my bags. 2 weeks later, while they thought I was at the UNAM orientation course, I was on a second-class bus to Monterey. I didn't have money for a plane. I only had my scholarship, 2 changes of clothes, and a deep hatred that felt like a burning engine in my chest. The day I settled into the dorms at Tech, my phone rang. It was Bernarda. "I found out what you did, you traitor. You're so selfish. Don't you ever speak to us again. You're dead to me." "Perfect," I said, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. "And you to me." I hung up and blocked her number, and Homero's, and Marcelo's. It took me 10 years, but I had escaped. Or so I thought. The landing at the Mexico City International Airport, AICM, was turbulent. Like my life. I collected my small carry-on bag. I didn't need more. I wasn't planning on staying. As I walked through the terminal, memories of those 10 years in Monterey hit me hard. Bernarda had kept her promise. They didn't give me a cent. But I kept mine, too. The first 2 years at Tech were hell. The scholarship covered school and the dorm, but not food, or books, or life. I became a shadow. While my classmates, sons of businessmen and politicians, went out to party at the clubs on weekends, I worked. I had 3 jobs. From 6 to 8 in the morning, I cleaned the campus library. From 6 in the evening to midnight, I was a waiter at a taco restaurant near campus. And on weekends, I worked the register at an OXXO. I survived on Moroccan and free coffee from the OXXO. I remember one Christmas, the first one I spent alone. The entire dorm was empty. It was snowing in Monterey, a rare event, and I was on my 24-hour shift at the OXXO. A drunk man came in at midnight, bought a 6-pack of Tecate, and wished me a Merry Christmas. He gave me a 100 peso tip. I locked myself in the storeroom and cried. Not from sadness, but from rage. That rage fueled me. In my few free hours, I didn't sleep, I studied. I became obsessed with programming, with market algorithms. I met Rafa, another scholarship kid like me, a crazy genius from Guadalajara. We locked ourselves in the computer lab. We graduated with honors. No one from my family came. Rafa and I pooled what little we had. We rented a tiny room in Apodaca and founded our company. For the first 2 years, we slept on the office floor. We ate cold pizza. And then, we made it. We created a market prediction algorithm that was almost magical. We sold the first license to a bank for an amount that made us cry. Then to another, and another. Today, 10 years after that call from Bernarda, I lived in a penthouse in San Pedro. Rafa lived in Miami. Our company was valued at over 1 billion pesos. And I still ate Moroccan from time to time, for nostalgia's sake. I had kept a low profile. No social media, no photos in business magazines. Rafa was the public face. I knew that if they saw my success, they would come, not for me, but for the money. So I became a ghost, a millionaire ghost. I left the terminal. The Mexico City air hit me. A mixture of pollution, tacos al pastor, and desperation. I ordered an Uber. The driver asked me, "Where to, boss?" "To Roma, to Condesa." I gave him the address in Del Valle. My parents' house. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror, puzzled. My clothes, though simple, were expensive. My watch was worth more than his car, and I was going to that faded middle-class neighborhood. "As you wish, boss," he said. The car moved along the viaduct. I felt like a soldier returning to a war zone. I didn't know what I was going to find, but for the first time in my life, I was the one carrying the weapons. And my most powerful weapon was the secret they didn't know, that the invisible boy they had cast out could now buy them, sell them, and buy them back again before breakfast. The Uber stopped in front of the house. It was exactly the same. The peeling salmon-colored paint, the wrought iron bars that were once white and were now gray, the small front garden that always seemed to be dying of thirst. I paid and got out. I dragged my carry-on, an aluminum Rimowa that probably cost more than the paint on the entire facade. I rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door creaked open. It was Bernarda. The 10 years had treated her exactly as I expected. The same short, coppery blonde dyed hair, the same floral housecoat, the same expression of perpetual annoyance. She looked me up and down. Her eyes lingered for a second on the watch, then on the suitcase. There was no hug. "No, it's good to see you. About time you decided to show up," was her greeting. She stepped aside. "Come on in. The kitchen's a disaster. There's a mountain of dishes to wash from last night's dinner." I stepped inside. The smell of the house hit me. A mixture of dampness, fabuloso, and failure. It was the smell of my childhood. "Hello, Mom. I missed you too, I said with sarcasm so dry it was barely noticeable. She snorted. Don't start with your airs, Dario. Leave your things there and help me. Your father went to the supermarket for more beers. I left the suitcase at the entrance next to a pair of Homero's old shoes. I took off my jacket, a Loro Piana that was worth a fortune, and folded it carefully on top of the suitcase. I rolled up my shirt sleeves. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Well, look who's here. The prodigal son. It was Marcello. If Bernardo was the same, Marcello had gotten worse. He had the same arrogant face, but now it was puffy. A double chin was starting to win the battle against his neck, and he wore a suit that was clearly too tight, probably bought on credit. His hair was slicked back with an excess of gel that shone under the yellowish light of the hallway. He stood in front of me, blocking my path. He was taller than me, but flabbier. "What's up, little bro?" he said, patting my shoulder in a way that was meant to be fraternal but was more condescending. "Still as skinny as ever. Don't they feed you where you said you live?" "In Monterey." "Hello, Marcello." "Congratulations on your engagement," I said, my voice flat. He smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Thanks. You're gonna die when you meet her. Ivana is on another level. Not like the little bookworms you probably go out with." "I can imagine," I replied. "Anyway," he said, looking me up and down, his gaze stopping on my rolled-up sleeves. "You here to help?" "Good, because Mom is going crazy. Look, just behave, will you? Don't pull one of your little stunts. Ivana and her family are important people. I don't want you scaring them with your weird computer stuff. Don't make me look bad. Got it?" "Got it," I said. I won't do anything to outshine the golden sun. He either didn't catch the sarcasm or didn't want to. Perfect. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some business calls to make. A top-level manager's work is never done. He turned and went upstairs, probably to lock himself in his room and play video games like he did when he was 16. I was left alone in the hallway. The scene couldn't have been more pathetic. The top-level manager and the stressed-out mother were caricatures of themselves. I went into the kitchen. The mountain of dishes was actually just the breakfast plates in the sink. It took me 10 minutes to wash them as the hot water ran over my hands. Hands that, just this morning, had signed an 8-figure contract. I couldn't help but laugh. The joke was so absurd it was hilarious. I had been back for less than half an hour and I was already the servant. That night, the house filled up. It was the pre-engagement dinner. My aunts, Bernarda's sisters, arrived with their salon hairdos and their knockoff handbags hanging from their arms. My uncles arrived, talking about soccer and politics with the authority that only ignorance can provide. The house smelled of reheated pozole and my cousin's cheap perfume. I sat in a corner of the sofa with a glass of soda, observing. I was an anthropologist studying a lost tribe. Everyone fawned over Marcello. So handsome, my boy. So elegant. He paraded around the living room like a peacock. And you, Dario, my Aunt Chue, the nosiest one, asked me. Still doing that computer thing? My son, Betito, is into that too. He fixes cell phones at a tech mall. You two should get together sometime so you can give him some tips. Of course, Auntie. Gladly, I replied, without looking up from my glass. Hey, and you're not married, she insisted. You're at that age. If you wait too long, you'll miss the boat. I haven't had time, Auntie. That's what I'm saying. Working so much isn't good. Look at your brother. He knows how to live. He's even getting married. At that precise moment, the doorbell rang. The atmosphere changed. Marcello ran to the door, shouting, "My queen has arrived." And then she walked in. Ivana. I had to admit, the woman was a spectacle. Tall, blonde, from a bottle, but a good bottle, with a red dress so tight it looked painted on. She wore heels that defied gravity and a Louis Vuitton bag that, unlike my aunt's, looked genuine. "My love," she said to Marcello, giving him a kiss that was more sound than contact. Then she greeted Bernarda and Homero with a rehearsed familiarity. "Mother-in-law, father-in-law. The house looks lovely." Bernarda was melting. "Ivana, my dear girl, you look so beautiful." "Oh, mother-in-law, well, today is a special day. I had to live up to your son." And then she saw me, sitting in the corner. Her blue eyes, cold as ice, scanned me from head to toe in half a second. She saw my simple clothes, my glass of soda, my slumped posture. She dismissed me. "And who is he?" she asked Marcello in a whisper that everyone heard. "Oh, that's Dario. My younger brother," Marcello said with a tone that was half apology, half warning. "The one who lives in Monterey." Ivana approached, extending a hand with long acrylic nails. "A pleasure, Ivana." "The fiancé." "Dario," I said, taking her hand. It was cold, despite the heat in the room. "Dario," she repeated, tasting the name. "How simple. And what do you do, Dario? Are you also in the real estate business like my little Marcel?" "No, I'm in finance," I replied. That seemed to capture her interest. A spark ignited in her eyes. "Oh, really? What a coincidence. I'm also an investor in high-risk private funds, you know. Leverage, I manage international capital." "How interesting," I said. "Yes," she continued, now addressing the whole room, which was listening, enthralled. "The market is at a wonderful point for those of us who know how to read it. Mindset is everything. Right now, I'm in on a project with cryptocurrencies and real estate in Tulum. The returns. Few. But it's by invitation only. My little Marcel and my in-laws are already in, right, my love?" Marcello nodded, puffing up with pride. "Of course, my love. All in." "Money attracts money," Ivana said, smiling. "As I always say, if you don't risk, you don't win. And we are going to win big." I watched her. The way she talked, the words she used, the manic gleam in her eyes when she spoke of returns. Something inside me, the instinct that had made me a millionaire, started to sound. It was a fire alarm, and this woman was pure fire. The dinner was pozole, just as I'd smelled. We sat at the dining table with extra chairs brought in from the kitchen and the patio. Ivana, of course, presided over the table next to Marcello and didn't stop talking. "The problem with poor people," she said, picking at her lettuce because the pozole would make her bloated, "is that they think small. They have an employee mentality. Not me. I think like a shark." Homero looked at her, captivated. "That's right, my girl. A shark, like on that show." "Exactly, father-in-law. For example, the fund I'm managing right now is super exclusive, only for family and very close friends. We're talking about a guaranteed return of 20% per month." I almost choked on my horchata water. A 20% monthly return. Guaranteed. Not even Bernie Madoff in his wildest dreams had dared to promise such a stupid thing. In the world of high finance, a 20% annual return is cause for celebration. A 20% guaranteed monthly return wasn't an investment, it was a robbery. I looked up and met her gaze. She held it, defiant. "Sounds impressive," I said carefully. "And what's the underlying asset? How do you mitigate the risk of such high leverage to guarantee that 20%? The room fell silent. The technical words hung in the air. Ivana blinked once, twice. The rehearsed smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Oh, sweetie," she said, laughing nervously. "I'm not going to bore you with technicalities. It's a very complex algorithm. Market patterns, arbitrage, things only my team in Switzerland understands." "Switzerland?" I asked. "Of course. It's all super legal, but you know, discreet. The tax agency in Mexico is a vampire." Marcelo nudged me under the table. "Dude, leave her alone. This isn't your little school class." "I'm just interested," I said, raising my hands. "As a fellow finance professional. It's fascinating. But my mind was working a mile a minute. Algorithm. Switzerland. Guaranteed return. These were the 3 red flags of any pyramid scheme. And then something clicked. The face, the way of speaking, the fake accent like a Polanco snob but with a hint of something that didn't fit. I remembered a call from 2 years ago. My friend Jacinto from Guadalajara, a good guy but too trusting. He had wanted to invest in crypto. He'd met a guru at a financial freedom seminar. He called me on FaceTime, devastated. He had lost everything. 1,000,000 pesos. She was so smart, Dario, he'd told me, crying. She talked about blockchain, arbitrage, she showed me charts. She said it was guaranteed. What was her name? I asked him. Yolanda. Yolanda Perez. But she called herself Yola Finance. She was blonde, gorgeous. I looked at Ivana. Ivana. Yolanda. No, it couldn't be. "Excuse me," I said, standing up. "I need to use the restroom." "Did the pozole not sit well with you?" Marcelo mocked. "No, I just need to check something." I locked myself in the downstairs bathroom, the same one with the broken tiles and the smell of dampness I remembered. I took out my phone and searched my contacts. Jacinto Guadalajara. I called him. "Dario, brother, what a miracle," he answered, his voice cheerful. He had gotten over the slump. "Jacinto, I need an urgent favor. And it's a weird one. Do you still have the photo of the woman who scammed you? The one named Yolanda?" There was a silence. "Why do you want to dig that up, man?" "But yeah, I have it. I kept it in case I ever run into her." "Send it to me right now, please." "Okay. But is everything all right?" "I don't know. I'll call you later." I hung up. A second later, my phone vibrated. A WhatsApp message from Jacinto. I opened the photo. It was her. The hair was different, darker, the nose perhaps a little less upturned, but the eyes, those cold, calculating eyes were unmistakable. It was Ivana. It was Yolanda. My blood ran cold. I stared at the photo, at Yolanda's smiling face in a Guadalajara club, and compared it to the woman sitting in my parents' dining room. It was the same person, without a doubt. I left the bathroom. The world seemed to move in slow motion. My uncle's jokes, my cousin's shrill laughter, the sound of spoons against pozole bowls, it was all a dull noise. I returned to the table. Ivana was in the middle of another anecdote about how she had destroyed a stockbroker in New York. And so I told him, "Honey, your numbers are from the last century." Boom. He was speechless. He didn't know who he was talking to. Bernarda applauded. "That's my daughter-in-law, a total badass." "That's right, mother-in-law," Ivana said, beaming. "And that's why, because you are my new family, I gave you preferential access to the fund. What you did was a test of absolute trust." My blood turned to ice. "What? What did you do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Homero sat up straight, swollen with pride and stupidity. "What a businessman has to do, Dario. Take calculated risks. We mortgaged the house, Bernarda blurted out, as if announcing she'd won the lottery. The bank gave us 8 million pesos. All of it to Ivana. She says in 6 months, she'll give us back double. 8 million. The house. The only thing of value they had. Homero's life's work, which, though mediocre, had been constant. I looked at Marcelo. He smiled. And I wasn't left behind, little brother. I sold my car, took out all my savings. I gave her my 4 million pesos. We're going to be rich. 12 million pesos. 12 million pesos. My entire being was screaming. Stop them. She's a con artist. I swallowed hard. I had to do this calmly. I couldn't be the hysterical child. I had to be the CEO. Mom, Dad. Marcelo, I said, my voice calm but sharp as a scalpel. The change in tone made everyone fall silent. That's a brave decision. It is, isn't it? Homero said. Very brave, I continued. Especially considering that the woman you gave your money to is named Yolanda Perez and has an outstanding arrest warrant in Jalisco for fraud. Silence. The silence that fell over the table wasn't a normal silence. It was heavy, dense, as if the air had turned to concrete. Ivana, Yolanda, went pale. The color drained from her face so fast it looked like a magic trick. She dropped her glass of red wine. The red stain spread across the white tablecloth like an open wound. What are you talking about, Dario? Marcelo stammered. I'm talking, I said, taking out my phone and placing the photo Jacinto had sent me in the center of the table, about the fact that this woman is a con artist and you've just bought her masterpiece. Bernarda looked at the photo, then at Ivana, then at me. Her mind couldn't process it. No, it's not true, Ivana said, her voice trembling. That's not me. It's a Photoshop. Dario is trying to ruin our happiness. He's jealous. And that was the lifeline my family needed. Because accepting that I was right meant accepting that they were idiots. And my family doesn't make mistakes, especially when it comes to me. It's true. Marcelo shouted, standing up. He's jealous that I found someone and he's still alone. He's always been a damn envious person. Marcelo, sit down. Homero yelled. Bernarda, look at me, I said to my mother. I'm telling you. She's a scammer. I just spoke to one of her victims. Shut up. Bernarda screamed, her eyes filled with a fury that wasn't for Ivana, it was for me. You show up after 10 years just to spit venom. I don't believe you. I trust her, who I've known for 6 months, more than you, who is my blood but betrayed your family. The blow was low and direct. If this story is gripping you as much as it is me, please take a second to like this video. It's free and really helps the channel grow. Subscribe if you haven't already and leave me a comment telling me what city or country you're listening from. I love reading where you're from. Every comment helps this story reach more people. Thank you so much for your support. Let's continue. You trust her more. I repeated, savoring the poison of her words. Fine. Perfect. Then this will be easier. Ivana, alias Yolanda, had regained some of her color. Seeing that the family was taking her side, she began her counterattack. The crocodile tears started to flow. Marcelito, my love, she sobbed, throwing herself into his arms. I don't know who that woman in the photo is. Your brother hates me. He's been giving me nasty looks since I got here. He just wants to break us up. You heard him, you imbecile. Marcelo yelled at me, hugging her. Apologize to her right now. I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a dry, bitter laugh. apologize to her?" I said, pointing at the con artist. "Marcelo, for the love of God, use your head for once in your life. 20% per month. Doesn't that sound even a little bit strange to you?" "Envy is eating you alive," my Aunt Choi shouted from the other end of the table. "You can't stand to see your brother happy and successful." "Successful?" I asked. "Giving all his money to a stranger? Mortgaging my parents' house? You call that success? It's an investment." Homero shouted, slamming the table. "You don't understand this stuff. You only know about your little computer things. This is the real world. Real business." "Dad, I work in the real world," I said, my patience running out. "I manage investment funds that are significantly larger than this, and I can assure you with 100% certainty that what this woman offered you is a fraud. It's called a Ponzi scheme. Look it up." "I don't need to look up anything." Bernarda intervened. "And stop calling that man Dad. You lost that right when you left." The second, even lower blow. I felt the impact in my gut. "And you," I turned to Ivana, who was still sobbing on Marcelo's chest. "Yolanda, how long were you planning to stay? Until after the engagement party? Or were you going to run off with the 12 million tonight? That's enough." Marcelo yelled and lunged at me. He wasn't the same athletic kid from school. His movements were clumsy, slowed by beer and tamales. I saw him coming and simply stepped aside. Marcelo tripped on the chair I had been sitting in and fell face-first onto the wine-stained tablecloth, knocking over the pozole bowl. The scene was grotesque. My older brother, the golden son, on the floor, covered in hominy and broth, while the con artist screamed as if she were being murdered. Homero and my uncles rushed to help Marcelo up. Bernarda, instead of helping him, walked toward me. Her face was disfigured with rage. "Get out," she hissed. "With pleasure," I replied. "Get out of my house. And never come back. Ungrateful trash." She slapped me. The sound of the slap was so loud it silenced Ivana's screams and Marcelo's groans. I touched my cheek. It didn't hurt. What hurt was the look of hatred in her eyes. A hatred that had been there for years, that I had always pretended not to see. Hatred for the son she couldn't control, for the son who had defied her, for the son who was a mirror of her own failures. "I hate you," she screamed at me. "I wish you'd never been born. You ruin everything you touch." "No, Bernarda," I said, and calling her by her name was like dropping an anchor. "You had already ruined it long before I arrived." Bernarda's slap was a point of no return. In that instant, something inside me, something that had remained broken and hopeful for 10 years, finally died. The little boy who ate cake alone in the kitchen, the teenager who dreamed of his parents' approval, disappeared. In his place was the CEO. Dario remained. "Get out, you say?" I repeated, my voice now void of emotion. "That's the best idea you've had all night." I started walking toward the door. "Yeah, run away like the cowardly rat you are." Marcelo shouted as he got up from the floor with a piece of lettuce stuck to his forehead. "Never look for me again." Homero yelled. "You have no family anymore." "I curse the day you were born," was Bernarda's final cry. I stopped in the doorway of the living room. The house smelled of sour pozole and desperation. I looked at them all. My aunts with their mouths agape, my uncles looking ashamed. Homero, red with fury. Bernarda, trembling with hatred. And Marcelo, the poor idiot, hugging the woman who had just stolen his last cent. "You know what's the saddest part of all this?" I asked the heir. No one answered. "That you don't even care if I'm right or not," I continued. "You don't care if you lose the house, if you lose your savings. The only thing you care about is that I, the failure, am not the one warning you. Just shut up and get out, Marcelo spat. I'm leaving. But I want you to remember this night. I want you to burn it into your memory. When this woman disappears with your money and the bank comes knocking, I want you to remember my face. I want you to remember that you had a chance to save yourselves. And you spat on it. You spat on it out of pride, out of stupidity. I said get out. Homero repeated, advancing toward me. And you, I said to Ivana, who was looking at me with pure hatred from Marcelo's arms. Yolanda, enjoy the 12 million. You earned it. These people deserve to be scammed. That seemed to trigger something in Homero. Insolent. You come to my house to insult me? No, I said. I came because your wife threatened to disown me if I didn't. Turns out, she's doing me a favor. I turned, put my hand in my pocket to get my phone for the Uber I'd already called, and then I felt something else, cold, metallic. My card case. A crazy, theatrical, and utterly satisfying idea crossed my mind. It was the perfect mic drop. Oh, one more thing, I said, turning back slowly. They all stared at me, expecting another insult. Marcelo, I said, getting his attention. You said you had a job as a top-level manager, right? In real estate. Yeah. So what? He said defensively. How much do you make? 50,000 a month. 60,000. I make more than you imbecile, he lied. I doubt it, I said. I walked back to the table. The stained tablecloth, the cold food, the broken family. You all think I'm a failure. I said quietly. You think I'm still the weird kid who fixes computers? Bernarda, you threw me out of this house 10 years ago, wishing I would starve. And you should have, she muttered. You almost succeeded, I replied. But it turns out I'm very good at what I do. I took the card case out of my pocket. It wasn't leather, it was black carbon fiber with my company's logo engraved in discreet platinum. I opened it. I took out a card. It was also metal, black, heavy. The letters were laser engraved. I walked to the table and, with a deliberate motion, slid the card across the tablecloth until it stopped right in front of Marcelo's plate, getting a little stained with pozole broth. What is this crap? Marcelo said, picking it up with disgust. It's my failure, I replied. Marcelo picked it up, read it. His lips moved silently. Then he frowned. Dario. Founder and CEO, he read aloud, confused. Below my name was the company's name, Quantum Leap FinTech. I don't understand, Marcelo said. No, let me help you, I said. While you were playing manager, I was building a company. While you were giving your money to her, I was managing funds worth billions. Homero snatched the card from his hands. He put on his reading glasses. Quantum Leap, he whispered. This isn't true. Take out your phone, Homero, I ordered. Or you, Marcelo, or any of you gossipy ants. Take out your cell phones right now and Google my company's name. And then, search for my name. There was a tense silence, then the sound of several phones being unlocked. I saw my Aunt Chue typing with her chubby fingers. I saw her face go from confusion to shock. Her eyes widened like saucers. No, it can't be, she said, showing the phone to my cousin. It says here. The finance genius, Dario from Monterrey. Company valuation, 1 billion pesos. A billion. Homero repeated, dropping the card to the floor. Bernarda stared at me. Her face, once red with rage, was now pale as a ghost. That's right, I said, my voice echoing in the now silent room. While you were calling me a failure, I was building an empire. While you were making fun of my computers, I was changing the rules of the financial game in this country. I walked to the door. Keep the card, Marcelo. Maybe when Yolanda leaves you on the street, you can use it to look for a job. Though I doubt it. We don't hire idiots. Dario, wait. Homero's voice was a groan. Dario, son, Bernarda began, her tone instantly changing to a cloying, false sweetness. We didn't know. Exactly, I cut her off. You didn't know, and you didn't care to know. The only thing you cared about was that I didn't outshine your golden sun. I looked at Ivana/Yolanda one last time. She was looking at me with a mixture of terror and admiration. She had recognized a superior player. And you, Yolanda, I said. I'm giving you 24 hours to disappear. I know who you are. I know what you did in Guadalajara. If you're still in this city tomorrow, my legal team, which does exist and isn't from Switzerland, will bury you. I opened the door. Enjoy your pozole. And I left. I walked down the dark street of Del Valle. The air smelled of rain. I took out my phone and canceled the Uber. I requested a private car from the Four Seasons. While I waited, I started to laugh. A laugh that came from the depths of my soul. The invisible boy was gone. The CEO had just closed the most important transaction of his life, his own freedom. The presidential suite at the Four Seasons on Reforma was larger than the entire apartment where I had lived in Monterrey during my years of poverty. It had a spectacular view of Chapultepec Castle. I poured myself a tequila from the most expensive bottle in the minibar, a Don Julio 1942. I deserved it. I sat on the velvet sofa and looked at my phone. I had resisted the temptation to look at it since leaving the house. I had 42 missed calls. 8 from Marcelo, 15 from Bernarda, 10 from Homero, and 9 from unknown numbers, probably my aunts. And then the messages. The first was from Marcelo, 5 minutes after I left. Marcelo, hey, what the fuck was that? 5 minutes later, Marcelo, dude, I googled you. No fucking way. Is that you? The one from Forbes magazine? 1 minute later, Marcelo, fuck, Dario, why didn't you say anything? You're a badass. Hey, so that chick really is a scammer. 1 minute later, Marcelo, ha ha ha. My brother is a millionaire. You should see everyone's faces. They're all pale. Then Bernarda, son. Dario, forgive me. I was very nervous about the party. You know how I get. Come back to the house. We need to talk. Bernarda, I made the mole you like. Bernarda, Dario, answer. Your father is very impressed. We are so proud of you. We always have been. That last sentence, we always have been. The lie was so blatant it made me sick. Proud. Proud of what? The shifts at the OXXO? The Christmases alone? Or did they mean proud for the last 15 minutes, after Google confirmed I was worth something? And then Homero, Dario, we need to talk seriously, man to man. What you said about Ivana is worrying. We need your advice. You're the expert in the family. The expert in the family. Yesterday I was the weirdo, today I was the expert. I finished the tequila in one gulp. The hypocrisy was so thick I could taste it. I didn't reply to any of them. I turned off the phone, took an hour-long bath in the marble tub, and fell asleep in the most comfortable bed in the world. The next morning, I took the first flight back to Monterrey. I didn't care about the engagement party. I didn't care about the warning to Yolanda. She was smart enough to know the game was over. What I didn't know was that for my family, the real game was just beginning. The time bomb I had left in their living room was about to explode, and I was going to watch it from the safety of my glass tower, 900 kilometers away. I turned off my phone during the flight. When I landed in Monterrey and turned it back on, I had only one new message. It was from an unknown number in Mexico City. Message: okay, I'm leaving. But not because of you. Because of them. They're too stupid. I feel sorry for them. P.S. Nice move with the card. From one shark to another, respect. I smiled. At least she was honest. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of glorious silence. I dove back into my world. Meetings, algorithms, projections. The market was volatile, and I loved it. It was where I did my best work. I had decided not to block my family again. It was a social experiment. I wanted to see how long it would take for them to break. The first few days, the messages were of false regret. Bernarda, son, when are you coming back? We miss you. Marcelo, bro, we have to celebrate. Come over this weekend. I'll buy the beers, you pay. I ignored them. Then the messages turned confused. Marcelo, hey, Ivana isn't answering my calls. Do you know anything? Homero, Dario, Miss Ivana hasn't deposited the first returns. She said it would be on the 15th. I continued to ignore them. And then, on the 14th day after my visit, the call came. I was in a board meeting, presenting the quarterly results. My personal phone started vibrating on the table. Bernarda. I slid to ignore. She called again. Ignore. She called again. Ignore. My partners were looking at me. Everything okay, Dario? Rafa asked. Family, I said. Give me 1 second. I stepped out into my private office. The phone rang again. An unknown number. I answered. And the bank says the mortgage was sold to a third party and the payment was due yesterday, and if we don't pay in 24 hours they're going to foreclose on the house. It was Bernarda's voice, but it wasn't her voice. It was a shriek, a sound of pure, animal panic. Mom, I said, though I already knew. Dario, thank God. That woman, that thief, she disappeared. She's gone. Her phone is disconnected. Marcelo went to her apartment and it's empty. She took everything, Dario. Everything. The 8 million from the house, your brother's 4 million. She paused for air, and that's when I heard Homero crying in the background. Not a man's cry, a whimper. Your father. Your father is in the hospital. He had a minor heart attack. Dario, we're going to be on the street. We have nothing. You have to help us. You're the only one who can. You have money. Save us, please, son, for the love of God. I listened to the whole speech, the hysteria, the desperation, the guilt she was trying to hurl at me through the phone. I waited for her to finish crying. Are you done? I asked, my voice calm. There was a choked silence. What? I asked if you're done. Dario, please. Mom, I interrupted. Exactly 2 weeks ago, in your dining room, I told you what was going to happen. I warned you. I begged you to listen to me. And what did you do? I didn't know. You slapped me. You called me a rat. You told me you wished I'd never been born. Homero threw me out of the house, and Marcelo called me a failure. We were nervous, son. But now it's different. It's an emergency. No, it's not different. It's exactly the same. You made a stupid decision out of pride, and now you want me to pay the consequences. Just like always. But we're your family. You stopped being my family that night. Or maybe 10 years ago. I'm not sure anymore. Dario, don't do this to me. I'm your mother. I demand it. Demand, I repeated. That's the only word you know. You demanded I go to the party. Now you demand that I pay your 12 million peso debt. You know what? I'm tired of your demands. Are you going to let your father die on the street? Let your brother. My father, I cut her off, mortgaged his house without consulting me. My brother gave his savings to a blonde he met in a bar. They are adults. Let them deal with their decisions. Ungrateful. You're going to rot in. I hung up. My hand was shaking slightly, not from anger, from adrenaline. I leaned against the glass. Monterey looked peaceful from up here. I went back to the boardroom. Sorry for the interruption, Rafa. Where were we? Yes. Projections for the next quarter. I thought that was the end of it, that after denying them the bailout, they would get the message. How naive I was. I had underestimated my family's level of shamelessness. Another week passed. One Thursday morning, my assistant entered my office without knocking. She looked pale. Mr. Dario, she said. There are some people in reception. They say they're your family. I looked up from my monitors. Family? I don't have family in Monterey. It's an older man, a woman, and a young man. They look very tired. The receptionist said that. Well, that they smell a bit. Like they've been on a bus. A bus. From Mexico City to Monterey. That's a 12-hour bus ride. They didn't have money for a plane. So they had made the pilgrimage of shame. I leaned back in my chair and activated the lobby security camera on my screen. It was them, but it wasn't them. They were broken versions. Homero looked like he had aged 20 years. His clothes were wrinkled, and he was staring at the polished marble floor as if it were an alien palace. Bernarda's hair was disheveled, undyed, showing gray roots. And Marcelo looked defeated, without the gel, without the suit, just a fat, sad man in sweatpants. They were arguing with the receptionist, who was maintaining a professional distance. Tell them to come up, I told my assistant. Not here. To the boardroom on the 40th floor. The big one, the one with the panoramic view. And ask them to offer them water and coffee. Lots of coffee. My assistant nodded and rushed out. Then I made a second call. Castellanos speaking. Dario. Do you have 10 minutes? Excellent. Come up to the 40th floor. I have some guests I'd like you to meet. I hung up. Mr. Castellanos was the head of my legal team. A man who ate sharks for breakfast. He was exactly what I needed. I stood up, straightened my suit, and took the private elevator to the 40th floor. When I arrived, they were already there, sitting around the enormous mahogany table meant for 30 people. They looked tiny, swallowed by the luxury. The view of the Sierra Madre had them mesmerized. Hello, I said as I entered. The three of them jumped to their feet as if a king had walked in. Son! Bernarda cried and tried to run and hug me. I held up a hand. Please, sit down. She stopped in her tracks. The coldness in my voice froze her. They sat. Coffee? I asked. Yes, please, Homero whispered. It's really nice here, Dario, Marcelo said, looking at the ceiling. I've never been in a place like this. I know, I replied. I sat at the head of the table. I looked at them, one by one. The anger was gone. All I felt was a deep, overwhelming pity. They were pathetic. What are you doing here? I asked. Dario, Homero began, with a trembling voice I had never heard from him. Son, we made a mistake. A terrible mistake. A mistake, I repeated. No. You made many mistakes, one after another, for 28 years. But we're your family, Bernarda sobbed. You can't turn your back on us. The bank took the house. We're living with your Aunt Choi, she humiliates us every day. And Marcelo, your brother. What about Marcelo? I asked, without interest. He lost his job, Homero said. Turns out the top-level manager was just a salesman with an inflated title. And when he stopped making payments on his car, the finance company took it. So, to summarize, I said. You're homeless, jobless, and broke. And you came here. You're our only hope, son, Homero said. We know we failed you, but blood is thicker than water. We need. And that's where he made his final mistake. We need you to help us, Homero continued. Here is a list of what? Well, of what would be fair. He pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. I looked at the crumpled paper Homero slid across the polished mahogany table. It was a sheet from a notebook with Bernarda's shaky handwriting. I didn't touch it. Fair? I asked. What's fair to you? Well, Homero cleared his throat, growing a little bolder. We thought that since you're doing so well, the fair thing would be for you to help us get back what we lost because of that criminal you uncovered. Ah, so now it's my fault for uncovering her, I said, raising an eyebrow. No, I mean, Marcelo stammered. What Dad means is that, well, yeah, we messed up. But you're a millionaire. 1 billion pesos, Google said. What's 12 million to you? 12 million, I repeated. The price of your stupidity. Go on. Homero looked at the list. First, well, the house. The bank is auctioning it. It's the 8 million we owed. 8 million. I nodded. Then, he continued, your brother's savings, his 4 million. What for? So he can start over. Start over, I repeated, looking at Marcelo. He looked away. And, Homero's voice grew smaller, since we'll be here in Monterrey. With you. We would need a place to live. An apartment. And something for our expenses. Bernarda and I are too old to work. And Marcelo needs capital, Bernarda added, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. About 5 million pesos to start a business. He's always had good ideas. I stared at them. The mental math was quick. 8 for the house, 4 for Marcelo, an apartment, lifetime monthly expenses, and 5 million in seed capital for the business genius who got scammed by the most obvious blonde in the world. They were asking for a total of more than 20 million pesos. They weren't asking for help. They were presenting an invoice. I leaned back in my chair and, for the second time in this story, I laughed. It was a different laugh from the one at the house. It wasn't a laugh of liberation, it was a laugh of absolute incredulity. The audacity, the shamelessness. It was so predictable. Are you making fun of us? Bernarda said, her voice turning sharp again. I'm making fun of the situation, Mom, I said. It's comical. There's nothing comical about it, she shouted. We're desperate. And you know what? We deserve this. You owe us. We gave you life, we raised you. The least you can do is pay us back. Pay you back. I said. Pay you back for what? For the slap. For the insults. For kicking me out of the house. For 10 years of silence. How much does that cost, Bernarda? 8 million. 20. 1,000. You're a bad son, she sobbed. And you are terrible parents, I replied, my voice icy. So we're even. Dario, please, Homero begged, seeing that the aggressive strategy wasn't working. It's your family. Don't leave us like this. At that moment, the boardroom door opened. Mr. Castellanos walked in. Impeccable suit, leather briefcase, and a face that looked carved from ice. "Counselor," I said, standing up. "Thank you for coming. Let me introduce you to my family. Bernarda, Homero, Marcelo. Family, this is Mr. Castellanos, my lawyer." The three of them stared at him, mouths open. "Lawyer?" Marcelo whispered. "Sir, madam," Castellanos said, his voice cutting through the air. He didn't shake their hands. He opened his briefcase and took out a folder. "Mr. Castellanos," I explained, sitting back down, "is here to formalize our meeting." "I have reviewed the situation," the lawyer said, looking at papers he didn't need to see. "And the legal landscape is very clear. Mr. Dario," he gestured to me, "has absolutely no fiduciary, legal, or moral obligation to pay the debts incurred by you, independent adults in full possession of your mental faculties." Homero went pale. "Furthermore," Castellanos continued, "your presence here, after crossing state lines to come to his place of work to demand money, could be interpreted as coercion. Or even extortion." "We're not extorting anyone." Bernarda shrieked. "He's our son." "Legally," Castellanos said, "that only means he might have to pay you alimony when you are indigent senior citizens. And believe me, madam, the law specifies a minimum amount that you would find insulting. But we haven't reached that point yet." "What? What do you mean?" Homero asked. "I mean," I said, taking the floor, "that this is the last time we will see each other. Mr. Castellanos has some papers for you." The lawyer slid 3 copies of a document across the table. "This," he said, "is a separation agreement. A good faith agreement." Marcelo picked it up. "Agreement for what?" "It's simple," I explained. "In exchange for you signing a legal document where you agree to never contact me again, not me, not my company, not my partners, under any circumstances, no calls, no emails, no visits, I, in an act of, let's say, nostalgia, will give you one last bit of help." Bernarda's eyes lit up. "Help? Money?" "I will buy you 3 first-class bus tickets back to Mexico City this time. And I will give each of you 50,000 pesos. 50,000 pesos? Marcelo repeated, outraged. "That's nothing. We lost 12 million. "Exactly," I said. "You lost 12 million. I didn't. 50,000 pesos is more than you ever gave me in my entire life. It's that or nothing. You're a monster." Bernarda screamed. "After everything I did for you." "A monster who learned from his creators," I replied, my voice finally rising. "What did you do for me, Bernarda? Tell me you preferred my brother? Kick me out for wanting to study? Leave me alone for 10 years? And you," I said to Marcelo, the golden son. "You're a fraud. A 30-year-old baby crying because someone took his toys. And you, Homero, you're the worst of all. Because you never did anything. You just sat and watched as she destroyed me. Take the deal," I said, my voice returning to calm, "or get out of my building. If you choose the latter, Mr. Castellanos has instructions to file a restraining order against you for harassment. And believe me, he wins his cases." There was a long silence. Homero looked at Bernarda. Marcelo stared at the table. Finally, Homero picked up the pen. "Give me the papers, lawyer," he said, defeated. They all 3 signed. Castellanos handed each of them an envelope with the money and the bus tickets. "Security will escort you out," the lawyer said. They stood up. Bernarda looked at me one last time. Her eyes held no tears, only a cold, pure hatred. "You're going to rot alone, Dario," she spat. "With all your money, but alone. I'd rather be alone with my money than poor and in bad company with you, I replied. They left the room. The door closed with a soft click. I was left alone in the boardroom, looking out at the city that stretched beneath my feet. Monterey. My city. My refuge. Mr. Castellanos gathered his things. Good work, sir, he told me. That was clean. Thank you, counselor, I replied. When he left, I stared at the empty chair where Bernarda had sat. Alone, she had said. She was right, in a way. I was alone. But for the first time in my life, loneliness didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like freedom. I let my parents and my brother go bankrupt and lose their home, even though I had the power to save them with a snap of my fingers. Some might say I was cold, that I was cruel. Others will say they got exactly what they deserved after a lifetime of abuse. So now I ask you, was I the villain in this story? Or did I simply give them the same level of support they gave me my entire life? Let me know your honest opinion in the comments. I'm very interested to read what you think. Thank you for listening to my story to the end. If you connected with it, please give me a like. It's very important for the channel. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the stories to come. See you in the next one.